Welcome to The Explainer. We love digging into those pivotal moments in history. And today, wow, have we got a story for you. It's about a siege where the real battle wasn't fought with swords and arrows, but with words and faith.
So let's just ask this question right up front. How do you defeat an enemy who, for all intents and purposes, is already won? We're going to dive deep into this unbelievable standoff, straight from the book of 2 Kings. It's a story where the sharpest weapon wasn't steel, it was propaganda, and the only hope? A desperate prayer.
Okay, so to really get what's going on here, we've got to paint a picture. Let's travel back in time. The year is 701 BC, and for the kingdom of Judah, things are looking, well, grim. They are staring down the barrel of complete and total annihilation.
You have to understand, the Assyrian Empire was the superpower of its day, no question. And their war machine, led by King Sennacherib, was parked right at the gates of Jerusalem. And to make things even scarier, they just finished, well, crushing is the right word, the fortified city of Lachish. This was a brutal, terrifying message. And now, all that was left was Jerusalem.
So Sennacherib sends his top guys, his field commander, a top official, and his lead spokesman, a guy known as the Rabshakeh. And listen, they didn't just show up with a bunch of soldiers. Oh no, they came with a brilliant strategy of pure intimidation. They set up camp on the high ground, right by the city's main water source, looking down on all the defenses. This wasn't just about tactics, you see. This was a total power play.
And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. You'd expect an immediate bloody assault, right? Arrows flying, siege ramps, but that's not what the Assyrians did. Instead, they launched this incredibly sophisticated psychological attack. The whole plan was to make Jerusalem give up without even having to fight.
So the Rabshakeh, the spokesman, he steps forward. And what's his first move? He completely ignores King Hezekiah. Doesn't even address him. Instead, he shouts directly to the soldiers and the regular folks who are all huddled up there on the city wall. He's trying to drive a wedge right between the people and their king.
And the goal? Oh, it was brutally simple. He wanted to convince every single person listening that their king's promises of help from God were nothing but empty words, a lie that would get them all killed. I mean, it's classic psyops, right? Isolate the leader and the people will crumble. He was basically saying, hey everyone, your king can't save you, but I can.
Okay, so tactic 1 is to undermine the king. What's next? Well, the Rabshakeh makes his next move, and it is just brilliant. He mixes a terrifying threat with a really, really tempting offer. This isn't just a demand to surrender. He's practically running an advertisement for it.
He paints this beautiful picture for them. Just make a deal with me, he says, and you'll all get to eat from your own vines, drink from your own wells. It sounds so good, right? But this was standard operating procedure for the Assyrians. It's the classic carrot and stick. He's making surrender look like the only smart, rational choice for a city that's about to starve.
But the Rabshakeh saved his most powerful weapon for last. This one was nasty. He went for the jugular. He wasn't just attacking their king anymore. Now he was going after their God. Think about it. He tried to take their single greatest source of hope, their faith, and turn it into their biggest weakness, their biggest source of doubt. He even has the nerve to claim that God himself is on Assyria's side. It was an absolute masterclass in psychological warfare, turning a fortress of belief into a prison of fear. And you know what? It's a tactic we still see in propaganda today.
Now, Hezekiah's officials, they hear this, and they start to panic. They can see how devastating this speech is. So they try to do some damage control. They beg the Rabshakeh, hey, let's talk about this in private, in Aramaic. You know, the diplomatic language. Please, don't speak in Hebrew where every single person on the wall can understand you.
And the Rabshakeh's response? Nope, not a chance. He knew exactly what he was doing. In fact, he starts shouting even louder, just to make sure every man, woman, and child on that wall heard his demoralizing message crystal clear. See, his goal wasn't diplomacy, it was pure terror.
So this relentless verbal attack, it's working, and it leaves Jerusalem's leaders totally backed into a corner. They're facing an absolutely impossible choice.
I mean, just put yourself in Hezekiah's shoes for a second. You've got an unstoppable army outside the walls and a terrified, panicked population inside. Every logical bone in your body is screaming, surrender. But that's not what Hezekiah did. He made a decision that, honestly, defied all logic.
Instead of waving a white flag, he tears his clothes in grief and despair. He goes straight to the temple, and he sends messengers to find the prophet Isaiah. In his darkest hour, he chooses this radical act of faith
just laying the whole mess out before God in prayer.
And what the Bible tells us happened next, well, it's something that just defies all military logic. It's something you just don't see in the history books.
185,000. Let that number sink in. According to the account in 2 Kings, that's how many elite Assyrian soldiers died, right there outside the walls of Jerusalem.
And how did it happen? Overnight, without a single battle being fought. The biblical account is just stark and stunning. It says the angel of the Lord swept through the Assyrian camp, and when the sun came up the next morning, the siege was over. The army was decimated, just like that. And so King Sennacherib, the most powerful man on earth, he just packs up and goes home. He retreats back to his capital, Nineveh, completely defeated. The overwhelming threat had been neutralized.
Okay, so that's the biblical story. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. Let's see how this incredible account lines up with what the Assyrians themselves wrote down.
So we have Sennacherib's own royal records on something called the Taylor Prism. And on it, he boasts about his campaign. I mean, he goes on, listing all 46 Judean cities he crushed. He even brags about trapping King Hezekiah in Jerusalem like a bird in a cage. But notice what he doesn't say. He never, ever claims to have actually captured Jerusalem. And that would have been the crown jewel of his entire campaign.
And that's silence, right there in the king's own victory record. It's absolutely deafening. So here's the bottom line. The Bible and the Assyrian records might give us totally different reasons for what happened, but they agree on the most important fact. Against all odds, Jerusalem was not conquered. It seems like a huge, embarrassing failure was just conveniently left out. Sounds like a bit of historical spin, doesn't it? So this whole conflict, fought just as much with propaganda as with siege engines, it leaves us with this big question. A question that echoes from those ancient walls right down to today. When you have a conflict between absolutely overwhelming power on one side and unwavering conviction on the other, what is it that truly decides who wins?